Do you see anyone here? Probably no. This is not an ordinary place but the city center of the capital of a European nation. Europe, which is already a less populated continent, but due to immigrants, the population of Europe is increasing. But even today there are few countries in Europe where very few people lives. You will be surprised to know that the population of London City is equal to the population of 10 European countries, which you can understand from the picture. But the topic of our today's video is something else. So in today's video we are going to show you why nobody lives in these 10 European countries. But before starting the video I want to request you, we put our best efforts to create our every single video. So please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's start. Number 10. Bulgaria. The country is remarkable for its variety of scenery. Its rugged mountains and relaxing Black Sea resorts attract many visitors. Like other nations of the Balkan Peninsula, Bulgaria claims a mix of Eastern and Western cultures, and the mingling is evident in its cuisine, its architecture, and its religious heritage. While it's not entirely accurate to say that nobody lives in Bulgaria, the country does face a number of challenges that have contributed to its relatively low population density and population decline over recent decades. The reasons behind this trend are multifaceted, involving historical, economic, and social factors. In 1990, the population of Bulgaria was around 9 million, but according to the figures of 2023, this population is now only around 6.5 million. Like many other European countries, Bulgaria has one of the lowest birth rates in Europe. The fertility rate has fallen below replacement levels, and the population is aging rapidly. The combination of fewer births and an aging demographic creates a natural decline in the population over time. Like in many other European countries, there has been a trend of rural depopulation as people move to cities for better jobs, education, and living standards. The capital city, Sofia, and other major urban areas like Plovdiv and Varna have seen population growth, while smaller towns and villages in rural regions are losing residents. As of 2024, the population density of Bulgaria is 62 people per square kilometer. This is equivalent to 161 people per square mile. Corruption, poor governance, and inefficiencies within the political system have contributed to a lack of trust in institutions and have limited the country's ability to fully harness its potential for development. Many Bulgarians see emigration as a way to escape these systemic problems and improve their lives abroad. Bulgaria is known for its mountainous regions, which, while beautiful, can be difficult to live in due to harsh winters, limited access to services, and geographic isolation. Many people in these areas migrate to urban centers in search of better living conditions. Number 9. Latvia. With over 44% of its territory covered by forests, a vast network of free-flowing rivers and thousands of lakes, Latvia is one of Europe's best-preserved havens for wildlife. Latvia is the fourth most forested country in Europe. Almost half of all state forests are covered with pine trees. As of the latest estimates around 2023, Latvia has a population of approximately 1.8 million people. This is relatively small for a European country, particularly when compared to countries with larger populations in the EU. About 34 people per square kilometer or 87 people per square mile. Since Latvia regained independence from the Soviet Union in 1991, many Latvians have migrated abroad, particularly to Western Europe, in search of better economic opportunities. This trend of emigration has been particularly pronounced in the last few decades, and Latvia has seen a significant drop in population due to people leaving for countries like the UK, Ireland, and Germany. Like many other European countries, Latvia has an aging population, and the birth rate is lower than the death rate. This leads to a natural population decline. The elderly population tends to stay in rural areas, while younger people often migrate to cities or abroad, contributing to depopulation in rural regions. Latvia has large rural areas that are sparsely populated. As with many other countries, there has been a trend of urbanization, with the capital, Riga, and other larger cities like Jurmala and Liepāja seeing more growth, while rural areas, especially in the eastern and northern parts of the country, experience significant depopulation. Many rural villages have seen their populations decline as people move to urban centers or abroad for work. Although Latvia's economy has improved since joining the European Union in 2004, there are still challenges in terms of wages and employment opportunities in rural areas. Many Latvians, especially the younger population, leave for countries with better economic prospects, contributing to the population decrease. Latvia has large forested areas and low-density settlements outside of major cities. While Riga is a vibrant city with over 600,000 people, large parts of the country are still sparsely populated. Many parts of the country are rural, with a number of people living in small villages or isolated farmsteads, contributing to the low overall population density. Number 8. Portugal. Portugal is famous for its explorers, port wine, cork products, football, fado music, and pastel de nata. What is very popular in Portugal? Portugal is special for many reasons. It is a beautiful country in southern Europe known for its breathtaking coastline, historic palaces, and tasty food. Portugal is actually quite inhabited, and the overall population density is moderate compared to other European countries. However, like many countries, Portugal has experienced certain demographic trends that have influenced where people live and why some areas are less populated. The current population of Portugal is approximately 10.3 million people, and around 112 people per square kilometer or 290 people per square mile. Many rural areas in Portugal have historically been dependent on agriculture, but with the mechanization of farming and changes in the agricultural sector, many young people have left these areas for work in cities or abroad, contributing to depopulation. Portugal has experienced significant emigration, especially during the 20th century. Many Portuguese people left the country for better economic opportunities, particularly after the 1970s, when the country transitioned from dictatorship to democracy. This trend continued into the 21st century, with many Portuguese emigrating to countries like Brazil, France, the UK, and Switzerland. Economic struggles, particularly during the financial crisis of the late 2000s and early 2010s, led to higher emigration rates, especially among young people. While there has been some return migration in recent years, many Portuguese still live abroad, contributing to slower population growth. Young people often move to cities for education and employment opportunities, leaving behind an older population in rural areas. This demographic shift has resulted in many rural areas having a high percentage of elderly residents and fewer younger people to replace them. Number 7. Russia, European part. European Russia is more economically developed and has the highest population density, as well as Russia's most modern and developed transportation and communication infrastructure. Historically, both the Russian nation and Russian state were formed in this area. It's not accurate to say that nobody lives in the European part of Russia, but there are definitely vast areas with very low population density. The European portion of Russia is incredibly large, making up around 25% of the country's landmass, but the population is not evenly distributed, with some regions being sparsely populated due to geography, history, and socioeconomic factors. Population of European Russia, approximately 110 million people. About 28 people per square kilometer or 72 people per square mile in the European part of Russia, which is relatively low compared to Western European countries. However, population density varies significantly across the European part of Russia. Some areas, particularly major cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg, are densely populated, while large swaths of the country, especially in the north and east, are very sparsely populated. European Russia is huge, covering about 40% of the entire Russian Federation's land area, and it includes large expanses of wilderness, including forests, mountains, and tundra. Many of these regions are difficult to access or inhospitable for large populations, leading to low population density in these areas. The climate in large parts of European Russia, especially to the north, is extremely cold and inhospitable. The Siberian climate in northern and central regions is characterized by long, harsh winters and short, hot summers. Areas like Murmansk, Vologda, and Komi experience temperatures that can drop below -40 degrees Celsius in winter, which makes living conditions difficult and discourages large-scale settlement. Like many other countries, Russia has seen significant urbanization, with the majority of its population concentrated in major cities. Moscow and St. Petersburg are by far the largest and most developed cities in Russia, housing millions of people and drawing in much of the country's economic and cultural activity. Number 6. Estonia. It is one of the least populous members of the European Union and NATO. Estonia has consistently ranked highly in international rankings for quality of life, education, press freedom, digitalization of public services, and the prevalence of technology companies. Estonia is a relatively small country in Northern Europe, with a population of just over 1.3 million people, and it features some regions with very low population numbers, particularly in its rural and northern areas. Population density, about 29 people per square kilometer or 75 people per square mile. While Estonia is a relatively small country in terms of land area compared to other European nations, its population is equally small. The low population density is partly due to the fact that many people live in urban areas like Tallinn and Tartu, but large parts of the country are rural and sparsely populated. The Estonian countryside has many remote areas, particularly in the northern and southeastern regions. These areas have fewer job opportunities and less infrastructure, leading to a concentration of people in urban centers. Some villages, particularly in the eastern Setomaa or the islands in the Baltic Sea, have very low populations, contributing to the overall sparsity. During the Soviet occupation, Estonia experienced population changes due to forced migrations and the movement of people from other parts of the USSR. This left some areas depopulated or with an aging population. Estonia's climate is characterized by cold winters, with significant snowfall and long, dark periods in winter. This can make life in some rural areas challenging, contributing to depopulation, especially in the northernmost regions and small towns. Number 5. Sweden. It is a country that is known for its speciality like IKEA, Volvo, and many more. The country has stunning landscapes and fascinating culture and history. The fika culture of the country, which stands for cake and coffee, is widespread across the globe. Approximately 10.5 million people live in Sweden as of 2023. About 25 people per square kilometer or 65 people per square mile, which is quite low compared to many other European countries. Northern Sweden, often referred to as Lapland, has a subarctic climate, with long, harsh winters and very short summers. This region is home to vast forests, mountains, and tundra, but the extreme climate makes it less suitable for large-scale settlement. In contrast, southern Sweden, including cities like Stockholm, Gothenburg, and Malmö, has a more temperate climate, which is more conducive to human settlement and agriculture. Sweden has vast stretches of wilderness, especially in the northern and central parts of the country. Forests, lakes, and mountains dominate much of the land, and these areas are sparsely populated because they are difficult to access and offer fewer economic opportunities. Much of the northern part of Sweden, such as Norrbotten and Västerbotten, is sparsely populated due to its size, distance from urban centers, and limited infrastructure. These regions have a low population density because most people prefer to live closer to Sweden's major cities in the south. Other major urban centers like Gothenburg and Malmö are also located in the southern part of the country and have significant populations. Around 80 to 85% of Sweden's population lives in urban areas, leading to a population concentration in the southern half of the country, leaving the northern regions much less densely populated. While Sweden is not empty, large parts of the country, particularly in the north, are sparsely populated due to geography, climate, and economic factors. Number 4. Finland. Finland is full of lakes and forests and is famous for its education system, Angry Birds, the Moomins, and design. In the north, Finland has land borders with its Nordic neighbors Norway and Sweden, and the three nations' borders all meet at the three-country cairn. Population, approximately 5.5 million people as of 2023. Approximately 18 people per square kilometer or 47 people per square mile. Finland is located in northern Europe, bordering the Arctic Circle. The northernmost parts of the country, such as Lapland, experience extremely cold winters with long, dark periods. This harsh climate makes it challenging for large populations to thrive in those regions. Finland is known for its vast expanses of forests, lakes, and uninhabited wilderness. Around 75% of Finland is covered by forest, much of which is sparsely populated or uninhabited due to the difficulty of accessing these areas and their limited economic opportunities. Finland has a relatively high level of urbanization, with much of the population concentrated in cities and towns, especially in the southern part of the country. Helsinki alone is home to about 1.5 million people in its metropolitan area, making it the most densely populated part of Finland. Other urban centers like Tampere, Oulu, and Turku also have relatively high populations, but the rest of the country, particularly in the north, is sparsely populated. Areas like Lapland, the northernmost region of Finland, are some of the least populated. This region's population is scattered across vast expanses, and many areas are remote or difficult to access. Finland, like many other European countries, has an aging population. This is particularly evident in rural and northern areas, where younger people tend to leave for urban centers, leaving behind a higher proportion of elderly people. As a result, many rural areas, especially in the north and east, have seen declining populations over the years. Number 3. Norway. Norway is a country of breathtaking glaciers, fjords, and avid winter sport enthusiasts. The terrain is glaciated with mostly high plateaus and rugged mountains broken by fertile valleys, scattered plains, coastline deeply indented by fjords, and Arctic tundra in north. Around 5.5 million people lives in Norway in 2023. About 37 people per square kilometer or 95 people per square mile. Much of Norway's land is mountainous and characterized by fjords, which are steep and rugged coastal landscapes formed by glaciers. These areas are difficult to access and develop, so settlements tend to be smaller and more isolated. Much of the northern part of Norway, such as in Finnmark and Nordland, is sparsely populated because it consists of vast forests, tundra, and mountains. These remote regions are also challenging to access, with poor infrastructure and harsh weather conditions, making them less attractive for large-scale settlement. Norway has a relatively high level of urbanization, but the population is still spread across a few major urban centers, mainly in the south and along the coast. About 80% of Norwegians live in urban areas. The capital city, Oslo, is home to around 1 million people in its metropolitan area and is the largest and most densely populated city in the country. Norway's cold winters and relatively short growing seasons, particularly in the north, make agriculture difficult. Much of the land in the north is tundra, with permafrost preventing extensive farming, and the areas closer to the coast are subject to the harsh Arctic weather. Extreme weather in the north and the mountainous terrain throughout the country have made settlement and infrastructure development more difficult in these areas, contributing to lower population densities. Similar to other countries, rural depopulation is an issue in Norway, particularly in remote northern areas. Young people often migrate to cities like Oslo and Bergen in search of education and job opportunities, leaving behind aging populations in rural areas. Number 2. Liechtenstein. The two neighboring countries Austria and Switzerland do not border on a sea themselves, which makes Liechtenstein a double landlocked country. This phenomenon exists only twice in the world. The only other country is Uzbekistan. Although the sea is far away, the paradisiacal Alps are right under your nose. It's not true that nobody lives in Liechtenstein, but it is one of the smallest and least populous countries in Europe. Liechtenstein is a sovereign microstate located between Switzerland and Austria in the Alps. While it may seem sparsely populated because of its size, it has a population of around 39,000 people as of 2023, and it is actually quite prosperous, with one of the highest standards of living in the world. Roughly 240 people per square kilometer, about 620 people per square mile, which is quite high compared to many other European countries. Liechtenstein is an incredibly small country, and its land area is only about 62 square miles. This limits the total number of people who can live there, simply because there isn't enough space for a large population. Most of the land in Liechtenstein is mountainous, particularly in the Alps. This geographic feature restricts urbanization and large-scale settlement, as much of the country's terrain is not suitable for building large cities or infrastructure. Due to its small size and mountainous landscape, there is limited land available for agriculture, industry, or residential development. As a result, even though the population density is relatively high, the country cannot accommodate a population comparable to larger European nations. Liechtenstein has a strong economy, primarily driven by banking, finance, high-tech industries, and tourism. However, Much of its workforce comes from outside the country, as many residents work in nearby countries like Switzerland or Austria. Foreign workers make up a significant portion of the population, but Liechtenstein's ability to attract foreign labor is limited by its size and by the need for people to live in or near other larger cities in neighboring countries. Despite its small population, Liechtenstein has one of the highest standards of living in the world. The country's prosperity and affluent population are a result of its favorable tax policies, high-income industries, and well-developed infrastructure. Number 1. Iceland. Iceland is renowned for its breathtaking waterfalls all over the country. Gullfoss, Dettifoss, and Seljalandsfoss waterfalls are some of the most well-known. However, countless others are waiting to be discovered, including the magnificent Dinjandi waterfall in the Westfjords. Wherever you go, hidden gems are waiting. Around 380,000 people lives in Iceland in 2024, and approximately 3.7 people per square kilometer or about 9.6 people per square mile, one of the lowest population densities in Europe. Iceland is a volcanic island located just south of the Arctic Circle, and much of its land is covered by mountains, glaciers, and lava fields. The rugged landscape makes it difficult to build cities or establish large settlements in many parts of the country. Iceland has a cold, subarctic climate, with long, dark winters and relatively cool summers. The climate, combined with frequent storms and unpredictable weather, makes it less appealing to large-scale settlement, especially in rural areas. Large portions of Iceland are covered by glaciers, including the vast Vatnajökull Glacier in the southeast. The presence of glaciers and high volcanic activity restricts human settlement in many areas. While Iceland is sparsely populated, the population is concentrated around the capital city, Reykjavik, and its nearby areas. Reykjavik is the largest city, with about 130,000 people, and the greater Reykjavik metropolitan area is home to more than 200,000 people, around 2/3 of the total population of the country. Most of Iceland's population lives along the southwest coast, where Reykjavik is located, which is also where most of the country's infrastructure, services, and industries are concentrated. Outside of Reykjavik, Iceland's towns and villages are small, and many of the rural areas are isolated, with few large centers of population. Iceland's landscape is not ideal for agriculture. The country has very limited arable land, and most of its terrain is rocky, volcanic, or covered in glaciers and lava fields. While Iceland has some fertile land in the south and along the coasts, farming is limited to only a small portion of the island. This restricts the ability of the population to grow food locally in sufficient quantities, and much of Iceland's food is imported. Livestock farming, particularly sheep and cattle and fishery, are the main agricultural activities, but the country still imports a significant amount of food and resources to sustain its population. Iceland is geographically isolated, located in the North Atlantic, far from the mainland of Europe or North America. This isolation has historically limited migration and settlement in the country, as there were fewer opportunities for trade, industry, or exploration. Historically, Iceland's population remained low for centuries, as it was a remote and difficult place to reach. Even today, despite being a highly developed country, the sense of isolation remains, contributing to its low population density. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.